Hello, my name is Joon Kim. I'm an educational consultant, and thank you for joining me day 5 of September Pay It Forward month. So many thanks to Life Coach University for the opportunity for me to share my expertise and my experience to help pay it forward. So given my background, I'll be sharing various concepts taken from the field of education and psychology to help you apply it for your everyday living. All of us has something to offer, so I invite you to pay it forward by sharing something of yours with someone else. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in today to the concept of mindfulness. This is something that many of us have heard of. It has become very, very popular. We might have seen it in news articles, stories, or maybe in the workplace. Remember, we're talking about everyday parts of our living, so it can be at home or it can be at work and in various roles. And so I'll try to share this concept and apply it in different contexts. So mindfulness in its most basic form is 3 components. So mindfulness is the intentional focus of our thoughts, right? I mean, we know what the mind is. Mindful is to be mindful or to think about something, but it really has to do with the intentionality. Because here's something that we know about our minds. It's constantly thinking about something. It's constantly if we're comparing our brains to a computer, it's constantly running. Some app is running in the background, and you guys know what I'm talking about. Even our cell phones has a high capacity to run numerous apps. Some of those apps are not even running in the foreground, right? They're in the background, and maybe you have received a message on your cell phone that says, hey, take a look at these apps running in the background. They're draining your battery, okay? So it's kind of like that. Our brain is constantly running different apps. If you are a mother, your mom app is running constantly. Did my kids eat breakfast this morning? Because, their dad was in charge, right? That's the running joke in my family. Well, did they get to school on time? Did they do their homework? I mean, there's so many different apps running in the back of our mind. And if we don't control it, it controls us. So the intentional way of our thoughts, right? And so this is where the increased popularity of meditation has really come into play. Today's talk, I dare not try to fully divulge and break down mindfulness, because I know there are life coaches out there. And if you're one of them, please, help spread the word about your expertise. It is very, very powerful stuff. I know that when I work with my students, that even a sort of non-expert, informal sharing of mindfulness as a concept has led to some pretty significant improvements. So meditation is just one way, is a way to really try to eliminate and close. I'm going to continue with that analogy here. Close all these apps that you're not using. And what does that do? You don't even have to be, I think, a computer scientist to know that when you minimize the number of apps running, it helps to focus the resources on that one app that you want to focus on. So meditation, said another way, is to start closing those apps that you are not using and only focusing on that app that you do need to use. So again, and this is so natural, our brain is constantly thinking and wandering, right? Have you ever tried to not think about anything? I know that's kind of a fun game that we can play with our kids. Hey, you have a challenge, because kids love challenges. Hey, I got a challenge for you, son. Try not to think about anything, okay? You ready? Go. And the moment you tell them to not think about anything, they will immediately raise their hand, or in most cases, they'll blurt out, it's impossible. Now, is that really true? Do you want to give it a try? So let's go ahead and just 2 seconds, right? 2 seconds. Try not to think about anything. Okay, you guys ready? All right, 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, that was longer than 2 seconds. But were you able to not think about anything? Or maybe you're thinking about, well, was that 2 seconds yet? Or we're talking about mindfulness today. So again, to really emphasize the point that it is near impossibility. It's impossible for us to not think about. So if we can't not think, what can we do? What hope do we have? Well, turns out that we actually can control and focus on just one thing. And in fact, that's a quality that allows successful people to do what they do. They're able to shut down all these other apps and really focus on one specific goal or objective at hand. So whether it be athletes, you've heard me, if you've been following the series, I love sports. I grew up playing sports. I think sports really is the easiest metaphor for life. So in sports, you have athletes who are able to perform at a very high level. Now, why are they able to do that? The simple answer is, well, they practice. That is true. But if we were to look at it through what we're covering today in terms of mindfulness, it's because they're focusing, they're directing all their energy, their attention to a very specific object, or objective, I should say, excuse me, to a very specific objective that allows them to allocate those resources in a very centralized and focused way. So again, I love that analogy of the different apps running. You close the apps you're not using, that one single app is going to be running at a much higher rate, and it's going to be able to process things much more efficiently. So think about just sort of the natural state and how quickly our mind begins to wander, right? I mean, I was just having a conversation with the student today about how we need to remove distractions. I mean, we're constantly bombarded, right? We are constantly bombarded by devices, pings and dings and sounds and chimes. Everywhere we go these days, we have things that is jockeying for our attention. Any of us, which actually should be every one of us, we now have phones and we take it with us everywhere we go. I mean, we'll forget our wallets, we'll forget keys, but we sure won't forget our cell phones. That cell phone is constantly, give me attention, give me attention. It's asking for us to give it attention. It's making sounds. If it's not even making sounds, you know what it is doing, right? It's vibrating. Again, trying to get our attention. So we are constantly being barraged with different stimuli. And so, of course, our attention gets distributed to so many different things. It's bad enough that within our own mind, we're thinking about, maybe if we're at work, I wonder what I'm going to cook for dinner, right? Oh, I wonder, today's really hot. Did I leave the AC on and it's going to drive up my electricity bill? I mean, we have all these different thoughts that are constantly going on. And on top of that, not only are these, drifting thoughts within our own mind, but it's in our environment. These environmental cues and factors that are trying to compete for our attention. So no wonder why it's exhausting. No wonder why we're fatigued, right? And especially with the pandemic, we talk frequently about the virus itself, but I think we're just now having the important conversation about the mental health aspect of the pandemic. So mental health is very, very important. It's more challenging than, say, physical health because it's not visible like a broken bone might be, or some type of a rash where you see physical symptoms. But we know when our mental health has been declining because we can tell that we're not quite as sharp. Maybe our memory, right? That might be one of the symptoms. Our memory is not quite where it used to be. And so we almost can sense the processes slowing down. So let's continue on. We talked about intentionality. Mindfulness is the intentional directed focus of our thoughts. Now, there is a temporal element to this, meaning it is being in the moment. That is an expression that we've heard many times before. Hey, enjoy it, be in the moment. So in my field of education, this is frequently heard during commencement day. All the music's going on, family and friends, flowers, people cheering and clapping, and you have students on their cell phone, not talking to a friend or not updating their social media, but they're trying to record their commencement. They have their phone up and they are trying to capture that special day. But I think you guys know where I'm going. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy the experience rather than get caught up trying to record this, because the truth is, how many times, or if it will even watch it at all. When do we go back and watch our recordings? Now, obviously, I think if we're a parent with young children and they play in sports, kind of speaking from my own experience, your kid does an amazing, feat in their sport, and I captured it on video. Yes, in those cases, you're going to want to play it over it again, and then you show it to other family members and friends. So there are times we do that, but you know where I'm going with this. Being in that moment, being present, not just physically, but mentally being present. Another example that comes to my mind is one of my teaching assistant. She had saved enough money to buy tickets to a John Legend concert. And he's not really my type of music, but I know that it was a very big deal for my TA. And she was so excited to go to this concert. And so when I saw her Monday morning and I asked her how the concert was, she was very, very excited and said, oh my gosh, it was an amazing concert. And then, of course, she naturally brought out her phone and she pulled up recording of the concert. Now, I don't know, I can't remember how long the recording was for, but it wasn't for 30 seconds. I think it was for, let's just say, just conservatively, it was 5 minutes long. So for 5 minutes, she was at the concert live in the flesh with music blaring. You got people cheering, lights, the whole experience. She has her cell phone in her hand and she's looking through her cell phone to experience the concert. Does that make sense to you? I think perhaps that it is another example of how, because of our phones, and again, I'm not saying it's all the phone's fault. I think that's very important that we need to acknowledge. I think phones can be great. They're very useful tools, but let's think about how we're using these tools. So in terms of being mindful, not saying get rid of your phone, not saying don't use it when you're at amusement park or at a concert. It's just think about it. Just really think about, do you want to experience the concert through your phone, or do you want to experience it by being in that moment? Just really enjoying that experience through all your senses, right? Even including the unpleasant ones, because I know going to a concert when you have that many people and there's food and trash everywhere, it might not be the most pleasant, but that is indeed the full experience. Being in the present is extremely important, and I got another example where I think this is really going to drive home the message that we struggle to really be mindful and be in the moment. And this has to do with the example of vacations, right? You guys know vacations. You guys have taken vacations. Hopefully you have. If not, it's time to go on vacation. Do you know, during that entire process, and research actually backs this up, do you know what part of the whole entire vacation, from the beginning of we're going to take a vacation to coming back and unpacking your luggage, do you know what part of that entire process where people are the most excited and most happy? Is it when they get on the plane? Is it when they check into the hotel resort? When do you think it is? And I know that some of you know this because you've probably heard it somewhere, but it's actually based on evidence. Research has shown that when it comes to people and vacations, the planning is the most exciting part. And if you think about it through the lens of mindfulness, it's because when you're planning, you're focused. You are paying attention to what time that plane leaves, when does it arrive, how many layovers. Oh my goodness, how much is that flight? Your mind is not drifting. Your mind is on a mission to develop the most exciting vacation you will ever have. I mean, really, you are allocating all your energy towards focusing on planning that vacation. But what happens once you get to the vacation? We got our work laptop, we have our cell phone. It's just checking a few email, right? We're distracted. We are not in the moment. We are not being mindful of the present experience. So that's the second component. And the third component really is they sometimes refer to it as no judgment, right? When we have thoughts, and again, this is where I concede to the life coaches out there, the power of our emotions and how it's tethered to our memory. Our memories are always interpreted through an emotional filter. We as humans do not recall memories in a very objective, non-biased, lacking any type of emotional influence on our recall. We're not cameras, we're not camcorders. We, by very nature of being human, we interpret through an emotional lens. So when we are being mindful, we are temporarily suspending that judgment. It's very, very difficult to do. I would maybe even say it's impossible to do, just like we began talking about the near impossibility of not thinking about anything. So our emotions are very powerful, and we'll cover a session later on in the series where I'll talk about a very cool metaphor theory that really helps talk a little bit more about emotions. But for right now, I just wanted to talk about the connection between our thoughts and emotion. And so in one specific case, we're talking about feedback loops, okay? So how our thoughts affect our emotions affect our thoughts. It is this loop. There's many different types of loops. If you ever studied biology, there's sort of biological feedback loops. But in this case, we're talking about our thoughts and our emotions. When you are being mindful, you are intentionally trying to sever and disassociate the emotion from the thought or the experience. And that's not to say emotion is a bad thing. It really isn't. I think we can all agree that emotion's a positive thing. But we really need to be able to not allow our emotions to control us and drive us to do things that will make us maybe regret. Oh man, I shouldn't have done that. Now I feel silly. But at the moment, because emotions sort of led that action, we weren't fully there. We therefore did not suspend our judgment. Instead, we allowed our emotions. So again, being mindful really is the intentional, being in the present moment, and suspending as best as we can the emotional contamination, for a lack of a better word, of our being in the moment and our thoughts. Now, this mindfulness is very, very practical. It's definitely in some schools, even as young as elementary school, kids are being taught about being mindful. And the evidence thus far is very encouraging. So they'll do some mindful training with some kids and not others, again, like an experimental design. And they'll see, okay, did the kids who got the mindful training, who received that additional mindful training, did they perform better than the students who did not receive the training? And so there is some very promising research out there that shows that mindfulness is a very powerful way to reduce anxiety, reduce mental health stressors, and increase productivity and anything that you're working on, basically. So another very practical opportunity for practicing mindfulness, right? Because we don't want to just know things, because lifelong learning, as this entire September series is about, is truly to learn, but also incorporate into our lives. So where can we apply mindfulness? Well, think about the next time. If those of you that are parents, when you're having a conversation with your children, or if you're at work and you're speaking to your supervisor, or maybe you are the supervisor and you're talking to the people that you supervise, being in that conversation, you are mindful, you are intentional about what you're thinking, what you're saying, you are focusing on that specific meeting, that specific time, as opposed to meandering, because again, maybe some of you guys know what I'm talking about. You'll refer to some past events and you have today's agenda, but you totally get sidetracked by a past event or an incident. So if you're trying to talk to your kids and teach them about their poor decision about this recent incident, you can't help but refer back to something that they might have done, days ago, weeks ago, maybe even months ago, and start sort of going off on a tangent. So there are these mindfulness opportunities to be intentional, to be in the here and now, the present tense, and to give yourself all focus at hand without that emotional biases shaping your thoughts. So said another way, if I had to simplify mindfulness, because I find myself as I get older, I love simplifying things. It's just, I can't remember too many things. I love simplifying. So what would we simplify today's topic of mindfulness? It would be to slow down and experience and be right there at that point in time and place. We're always thinking forward or backwards, but we struggle to be in the present tense. I think that's one of those things that is another way to conceptualize mindfulness. Is not to be thinking about the past, is not to be thinking about the future, but to be in the present. If you can visualize the linear sort of visual of that. So be mindful, everyone. It's a cool little exercise, if you will. Try it out, see if that helps you in any way. Maybe at the least it'll reduce some daily stress. To be intentional, right? So you might carve out a time, let's say 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes. Okay, 10 minutes may be a lot, especially if you have young children or an infant. How about 5 minutes? Just 5 minutes. You carve out a time and place. Maybe it's your favorite chair, maybe it's a little bench in your backyard, wherever it may be. You carve out that intentional time just to be alone with just your thoughts. I think that's one of those things that it's very difficult for us to do. And so what that means is you have to leave your phone back inside the house, or you got to leave your phone somewhere else, turn it off. Okay, so slow down. And as the saying goes, slow down and smell the roses. And let me know how that goes. I think that would be very cool to know how some of you testing out mindfulness and what are some of the observations that you've noticed. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I just want to share with you that I will be traveling for work. I will be out of town for the rest of this week. So for day number 6 and 7, I'm going to go ahead and pre-record those. So enjoy those. Those are going to be some pretty awesome topics. I'm disappointed that I won't be able to do that live with you, but nonetheless, you're going to get everything I need to share with you about those topics. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you soon. Take care.